Today's episode is brought to you by Tommy John and Tommy John's Cool Cotton Collection. Before I tell you a little bit more about Tommy John, I want you to know that I own their underwear, I own their socks, and I own their undershirts. And guys, it is truly amazing. When you try their underwear, their socks, or their undershirt, you will never buy another pair of underwear or another undershirt from anyone else other than Tommy John. Tommy John's Cool Cotton Collection is made from a patented blend of super light, breathable Pima cotton fabrics that keep you 2 to 3 times cooler and dry 4 to 5 times faster than traditional underwear, and it's impossible to get a wedgie. Plus, Cool Cotton features the one-of-a-kind horizontal quick draw fly, saving you an average of 217 minutes a year in bathroom time. No idea how they came up with that, but they obviously figured it out. Their undershirts, again, which I own several of, are made with a patented Stay Tucked guarantee, and their socks have a stay-up technology to keep them in place. And of course, their underwear is backed by the best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. Look and feel amazing all year long with Cool Cotton from Tommy John. Please visit TommyJohn.com. That's TommyJohn.com. All right, folks, my name is Michael Alden, and this is the Alden Report. Folks, I know I always say how excited I am about having my guests. Folks, I am more than excited. I'm honored, I'm humbled, but I'm even more interested to hear what my next guest has to say. My next guest, his name is Ryan Blair. He is the #1 best-selling author of the book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. In fact, it was a #1 bestseller on the New York Times. He's also the author of his latest book, and I love the title of his latest book right here. It's titled Rock Bottom to Rockstar. I've read almost all of it. It's an amazing book. But he's also the CEO of a company called ViSalus that's generating literally billions of dollars in sales. He has an amazing background. He has an amazing story. He's a classic entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He's a father. He's literally doing it all. And folks, this next, hopefully 40 minutes or so is going to be an enlightening 40 minutes, not only for me, but for those of you listening and for those of you watching. Ryan, thanks for being my guest.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate that introduction. I gotta record that and use it for every speech I give.
I practiced that in the shower a little while ago. So
awesome. Thank you for the visual.
Well, first off, before we get started, did you get the list of questions?
You know what? I haven't got the list of questions. But I mean, feel free. I'm an open book, so feel free to ask me anything.
I'm sure.
There's nothing you could ask me that I won't answer. All right. And if I can't answer it, I'll tell you.
Perfect. I'm sure you'll be fine. But first up, before we do get started, so how it works is I have 10 questions that I ask everybody, the exact same 10 questions, and then we kind of just veer off from there, from what you might say and things like that, and the notes that I'll feverishly be taking. But before we do get started, I do want to thank you, for joining me. I first learned of you when I walked into Hudson News to try and I was scurrying around trying to find my book, and I saw your book everywhere. And,
awesome.
And my girlfriend says, you should probably pick this up. Check it out. I picked it up. I read it. I absolutely loved it. It's such a great book, man. I just love the way I love the way you write. I love your story. I love your background. We'll get into the whole thing in a little bit. So anyway, so that's how I found you. So
awesome. I appreciate hearing that. Obviously, as both of us being entrepreneurs, it's always good to figure out where you're making an impact, and I'm glad to hear that. Rock Bottom to Rockstar has a big place in Hudson coming up here. So Nothing to Lose is still on the storage shelves. Hopefully it'll even be more prominent as a result of what happens with Rock Bottom to Rockstar. So I really appreciate your support.
Absolutely.
It means a lot.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So the first question I like to ask everybody, I love to hear everyone's responses. The first question I ask you, Ryan, is how do you define success?
How do I define success? That's a tricky one for me, and it's a tricky one for everyone, and there's no simple answer. John Wooden, the famous UCLA legendary coach, was a mentor of mine. And he describes success as having the fulfillment of knowing you've done your best. He has a bit of a longer paragraph than that. But in essence, the fulfillment of knowing that you've done your best is my definition of success. I received it directly from one of the most successful coaches and human beings on the planet, John Wooden, prior to his passing. And so it's really finding fulfillment knowing that you've done your best. And you put it all out there on the table. And then secondarily, I would say I received success differently than others, and that is, yes, I receive it through monetary transactions, and that's a gratifying thing. A lot of times people give me a hard time about doing this deal or that deal because I made 100 million there or 50 million there or whatever the number is. And a lot of people they don't like that in this day and age because of the issue that we have with the haves and the have-nots and so forth, and that's a whole longer subject. But I talk about my success to inspire others, and I talk about my success as more of a sport than it is about, accumulation of capital, because the way I receive success is I give it away.
Right.
I'm heavily involved in philanthropic organizations that either feed meals to children through my organization at ViSalus. I give back to autism-related causes as a result of my family and my son having autism. And I love to give back to at-risk youth, kids that were just like me, one mentor away from being a success. And so I love being able to pay it forward in that fashion. And that's what my book's about. It's about paying it forward.
Yeah, I love it. You said so many things in there, and I'm just trying to figure out I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to ask you. I know that you talked about in both of your books, you talked about having a mentor, and I think your first mentor was your stepfather. Tell us a little bit about the importance of having a mentor. Yeah,
and I want to state here, a lot of times people look for reasons why they can't. Right? I look for reasons why I can. And so a lot of times people come to me and they'll ask me this question, well, I don't have a mentor, so you got lucky.
Right.
And I love it when people tell me that, because, I did get lucky. I think we're all lucky, though, to be on this planet at this very time, living in America or around the world where opportunity is endless, where technologies are innovating and revolutionizing industries and the way that we conduct ourselves and communicate. So I believe that we are all nearly equally successful.
Sure.
Right? And so forth. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. My mentor was a real estate entrepreneur. He was a cheap, roll up your sleeves. He had HUD housing kind of projects, which for those of you not familiar, this means he would send me in to the dirtiest houses that had been run down, bought in foreclosure. We're talking what would look like a picture of a murder scene.
Sure.
I would walk into houses and I'd have to go clean these things up. And he would refuse to allow me to do anything that spent money that was unnecessary. If the toilet was broken, I had to fix it, right? If my car needed new brakes, he told me to figure out how to put them on myself, because he wasn't going to help me do anything. I was going to help myself do those things. So the importance of a mentor is huge. My mentor, Bob Hunt, who later became my stepfather, who since passed away, he gave me a lot of foundational principles that I didn't know otherwise. So I was a street kid who had a terrible vocabulary, who couldn't articulate, who didn't know any math or business. I dropped out of high school my freshman year.
Amazing.
So he basically gave me audio tapes. And the first audio tapes he gave me were called Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale. And then he got me listening to Think and Grow Rich. But nowadays, mentors are all around you. The people listening to this podcast have a mentor in you right now, and a mentor in me. Mentors are in books. Mentors are on social media. So nowadays, it's easier than ever to find a mentor. And it's extremely important. People just don't take the actions to do it.
Right. Yeah, it's funny when I as you're talking, I think about it. I graduated from law school and I became a lawyer, and I realized that you and I have a very similar background. When you mentioned HUD, I grew up in state housing, very similar, and I remember feeling the sense of accomplishment, like, hey man, I graduated law school and this is great, and I'm a lawyer. And then I realized I know nothing about the law, and I knew one lawyer, and so I said to him, I said, hey, look, man, you are now going to be my mentor.
That's how you do it.
He said, okay, because it's just crazy, it's like you grow up, and like you said, you can just if you want more, I think you can just ask. I don't have to plug my last book, but if you do, you just go and ask. If you really want a mentor, if you want to learn from other people, you just go out and find them. It's that simple.
Yeah, you find them, and what I always tell people is somehow give them an offer, right? Like tell them what you're going to give them, because I'm a mentor. And for example, if a person wanted to learn how to make a documentary, I'm on the board of Riveting Entertainment. We made a number of very big award-winning documentaries and so forth. So I can get you advice. I can point you to the right person, but you got to tell me what's in it for me, because I don't have the time to answer 1,000 emails a day, which is about what I get today.
Right.
And directing people in the right. And that might be you donate to my charity your time. That might be that you send me an article or, a book that is of interest to me based on something that you've done in your research. It's real easy to stand out, because most people just don't. They don't even, they'll write me and they'll say, I want you to be my mentor. And of course, I don't have time to reply.
Right.
And then they'll be mad at me for not joining them, being their mentor. And I don't even understand what they want mentorship on, right?
Right. You might say, again, I'm glad I was one of the many that if you do want to reach Ryan Blair, you can find him at ryanblair.com. But how I actually reached out to Ryan is I read your book, and then, you probably remember, I reached out to you from every possible angle I could to get in touch with you, because, you inspired me.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Sorry about that.
Oh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here now. I'm here now. Sorry about that. Can you start over on the question?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just saying, I said, you had mentioned you get thousands of emails, and I said that I was probably one of those 1,000 at one point.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that, I think people need to understand if you really want something, like I wanted to reach out to you and connect with you, there were multiple ways that I obviously reached out to you over time, and I think I kind of wore you down a little bit, but that's all right.
Yeah, no, you know what? You did a fantastic, job, my friend.
Well, thanks for coming on. So I really, really appreciate it. How is your son, by the way?
He's doing great.
Yeah.
My son Reagan, he's 7 years old. I just took him off the grid. I'm so proud of this. I bought a property in northern Arizona, and I grew up and I just had this fantastic environment. I grew up in a small town for my adolescent years called Moore Park, and it was a farm town. It had no supermarkets, food. This is prior to video games, to age me a bit here. This is prior to video games being, a staple in every household. So
Sure.
We went out in the fields, we caught snakes, we learned the nature, we learned all kinds of things. And now I'm sharing that tradition with my son, and he's doing great. He has autism, so I have the challenge every day of figuring out how to communicate with him and to find common ground, and it's amazing. And I've been so lucky to have such a great, big-hearted son, and his mother's fantastic. And, I gotta say I'm very grateful to have a son with autism, and that gives him a certain magic that I just get to experience every day, differently than probably most fathers do.
I watch your documentary, and, obviously I read your first book, and then I watch your documentary again, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. You just go to ryanblair.com. He shares it with you for free. But what I loved about it, Ryan, is that how you let people in your life. I mean, you're obviously a very successful guy. You're, the CEO of a company that generates billions in sales. And, to show the real personal side of things. I mean, I remember when you were in the car when you got the phone call and that your son had autism, and at first it didn't seem like it hit you, and then it all of a sudden hit you.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It brought tears to my eyes. I have a little girl, and I just am so fortunate that that she's thriving and she's out there doing her things. And I saw that, man, and it was just awesome that you shared it with people.
And that's funny when you say about the documentary. Mm-hmm. The reason why I gave it away for free, and I negotiated, and it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to make and produce. I gave it away for free because I just didn't feel like I could charge people to see me learn about my son's autism for the first time. And the juxtaposition between that and my book becoming a New York Times bestseller and my business taking off and my mother in a coma, I just didn't feel like I could charge for that story. I felt like it was so perfectly gifted to me to share with others that I had to do it. So for your listeners out there, it's on YouTube for free. If you go to ryanblair.com, you can check it out. I'd love your feedback, and I'd love you to spread the word about it.
Oh, it's great. So next question I have for you, Ryan, and I know you have a lot of them, but I want you to think about this one. What has been your biggest professional obstacle, and how did you overcome it?
My biggest professional obstacle has been my ego.
All right.
How did I overcome it? It's a long process, my friend. Obviously you have to learn about it, and it's real easy for those of you on the phone here. When you give a poor kid a bunch of money, we all do the same thing that all poor kids do, and that is you start to spend it frivolously, and you make decisions perhaps based on ego. And then, I was going to title my next book Everything to Lose, because Nothing to Lose was about the mindset of just having nothing to lose. You're back against the corner and fighting out of that corner and winning at all costs, right? Then when you have everything to lose, when you have $100 million in the bank, when you have, all these different things, and then you become a big target, this about the legal profession. I mean, there's days where I've been sued for $200 million, obviously frivolously,
right.
But there's days where I walk in, to the office to find out that I'm facing yet another lawsuit. And I write a lot about that in Rock Bottom to Rockstar. But in essence, I think ego was the number one thing that I've had to work on. And the reason why is maybe my ego got myself into a lawsuit that I shouldn't have.
Sure.
Or maybe my ego wouldn't just go settle the damn thing.
Right.
Or maybe my ego, wanted to fight for no good reason. And so as a result of that, I got to spend millions of dollars on attorney fees. So I'd say ego would be number one.
I tell people as an attorney, I don't practice anymore, but I tell people lawsuits, the only people that win are generally the lawyers.
The attorney, yeah.
I mean, it's true. And, you're right. I've seen ego get involved, and I'm the same way. I'm quick to tell somebody to go fuck themselves.
Now we're talking.
And I know you'd appreciate that because I read both of your books. So, and then you realize, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. I try to go. I try to focus on really three things. My physicality, so my my physical health,
sure,
my psychological health, and then my spiritual health. And I try to focus on all three of those things. And obviously ego connects to all three. And you know, and you got to focus on that. But also, you know, I just made a lot of rookie mistakes because I'd never run a company that scaled from, 0 to 600 million in 36 months, right? So in 36 months, I went from a $9 million company to 624 million, 120 million in cash flow that year, 97 million in profit, and I sold it for 792 million. So as a result of that, I had to learn a hell of a lot about myself that I didn't know already, and you only learn that type of stuff when you've gone through it.
It's amazing. It's an amazing story. Again, we're on with Ryan Blair. If you'd like some more information about Ryan Blair, you can go to ryanblair.com. He's the author of the New York Times #1 best-selling book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. He's also has his latest book due out in October, Rock Bottom to Rockstar. I love that. I love the title. It's a great. I've read most of it. It's such an amazing book. Next question I have for you, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is traditional education important for business success? Like higher education.
Yes. So a lot of people don't understand this about my story. So after I dropped out of high school, my freshman year, I literally sat in a continuation high school, which is basically, if I didn't sit in a seat, they would send me to jail. I was on probation. And so as opposed to sitting in juvenile hall, I would have to go sit into a classroom seat, and I would do nothing but antagonize my teachers and my fellow students. And I had, very, very, very little learning. When I met my stepfather, who became my mentor, he insisted that I go back to school to get my GED, and he insisted that I go to college in order to work for him, and he insisted that I fill my skills gap. I then went to a community college called Moore Park Community College, where semester 1, I felt so overwhelmed. I never passed a math class. I couldn't even pass the reading and math standard tests to get you to go from freshman year to sophomore year in high school.
Right.
And so here I am sitting in a community college just lost. I got a tutor. I did everything I possibly could. I listened to audio tapes because I couldn't read at the time yet. Wow. I hadn't ever learned to read really. And then from audio tapes to learning how to read to learning mathematics, I then found that I could accelerate. And I actually leveraged a thing called affirmative action as a result of being a ward of the court, meaning I was considered a foster kid. As a result of that, I was able to get into a 4-year university, and I got into a business school at Cal Lutheran University, and I accelerated. And next thing you know, I'm on the dean's list, and next thing you know, I'm starting a company. I got a job as a software engineer, and by the time I was about 20 years old, I was maybe making 120, 130,000 a year, inflation adjusted. That's probably 200,000 a year today.
Right.
And then I decided to start my first company. But back to the original question, you need academics, you need self-teaching and experience, and then you also need skills. And you need to constantly fill your life with all three continuously, and that's forever. That never stops.
Sure. I love it. I don't want to give too much away in your second book, but I love the story about when you came out of the classroom and you were walking down the hall and you looked on the board, and so I don't want to give too much away, but it was.
Yeah, I was shocked. Normally when I was on a place on a bulletin board, it was like most wanted, and then prior to that, and all of a sudden now I'm placed on a bulletin board for academics. Yeah,
it's amazing. I didn't even realize the part that that you didn't even know how to read properly, and then you had to overcome that. It's just again your story. I thought I had a good story, my friend, but man, after reading your first book, I was like, wow, this guy's overcoming adversity is an understatement for you, and it's really, it's inspiring. As you were telling the story, I got chills because there are so many people that are going through or have gone through what you have gone through, what I've gone through, and many others have gone through, and then they're stuck and they don't do anything and they stay there.
Yeah.
And for you to tell your story is, again, for those listening, for those watching, take it to heart. Understand that, Ryan grew up with nothing. He was, he talks about it in his first book. He was involved in gangs. He'd been arrested a bunch of times. He was in juvenile hall where nobody stole his milk.
No, they did. They just only did it once.
Yeah, exactly. and he's turned it around. And not only is he making money, but he's making an impact on people's lives. And I do also love that part about you as well. That's really, really important. With success is to give back, and it's just awesome what you're doing.
Thank you. Well, rock bottom to rockstar, back, so a lot of people read Nothing to Lose, And they may have been turned off by the fact that I was in a gang and I'd made bad decisions. And, and as a result of my unique perspective, maybe they weren't ready to listen.
Sure.
And maybe now, as a result of seeing, the work that we've done, giving 4 million meals to kids in need, as a result of seeing all the at-risk youth that have been impacted by getting a copy of Nothing to Lose or by the donations we've made to various charity events supporting them, I'm hoping people come out and support Rock Bottom to Rockstar, because Nothing to Lose was rags to riches. Rock Bottom to Rockstar is how you can do it too, because everybody's had a rock bottom moment. Everybody wants to have those rock star moments.
Yeah, what I do like about it too in your book, how you talk about, you rose from the ashes, so to speak. You climbed the pinnacle of success, and you're standing at the top, and then you fell more than once. and from either from mistakes or circumstances outside of your control, and you talk about in the book how to overcome that, and I think that's really important for people, for entrepreneur, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're just working or whether you're just in your personal life. It's people, it's cliche-ish. It's it's not how hard you fall, it's how quickly you get up. But I love that about your story. So many people they fall down and they stay down.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, because in our society we try to suppress this stuff. And I remember when I went bankrupt after I sold Sky Pipeline. I sold Sky Pipeline when I was 25 years old in a $25 million transaction. The venture capitalists, they had all these different things called full ratchet provisions and anti-dilution preferences and blah 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 blah. And so as a result, they ended up basically investing $3 million and getting 24 of the 25 out of the company. I got about $1 million, and that's a lot of money. And I know a lot of people on the phone here are thinking, wow, a 25-year-old with $1 million.
Right.
Next thing you know, I'm spending it just stupidly, buying fancy cars, acting like I got $1 billion, because this was the first time I'd actually had any public notoriety as a result of of my entrepreneurial endeavors. Right. And I blew it all, and I went bankrupt. And and I remember sitting there, and I talk a lot about this in my book, what that experience was like, having the bill collectors calling me, all the stuff that I went through, and that became the foundation for my financial empire now. And and I learned so much from that, and that's why I have such diversification strategies into real estate or investments in a number of different businesses through my venture fund #1, or I bought back ViSalus, and it's all about something that I learned going through those dark days of bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's funny when you talked about that. I declared bankruptcy as well, and so and
it's rare that people admit that these days.
Yeah, and I remember walking and I was in law school. I was in my last semester in law school. I started a business, didn't work, and I remember walking into the courtroom and in federal court and just sitting there and just feeling so defeated and
shame.
And it was like, I remember meeting with a trustee, and he's asking me, first of all, I had no assets, and he's like, what's this, what's that? And I'm like, I had a blue van, that's all I had to my name, this Ford van, and he says, all right, you can keep that. I was like, all right, cool, I can keep my van at least, and but it's funny too, even in this day and age now, as we've grown up, sometimes it still comes back, and you have to say, oh yeah, I declare bankruptcy, but now I just sold my company for $792 million, so does it really matter?
Yeah. It does come back, and the reason why I'm transparent about it is, I believe that like you said earlier, a lot of these things are my own mistakes.
Sure.
And if I could teach people how not to make the same mistakes I've made, then I'll create value. And my belief system is the more value I create on the planet, the more I receive. So my hope is, by sharing some of these things transparently, which, a lot of my attorneys and other people were like, why the hell would you bring the public's attention to, 10 things that happened that you fucked up on?
Right.
And I'd be like, why? Because I want these people to have me invest in their businesses down the road. I want these people, to support my book. I want these people to not make the same mistakes that I've made. So that's why I write, and that's why, I transparently share the stories that I've learned from.
Well, it's the realness of it. That's really what it is, and that's what I like about you. You started with nothing, and now you're sitting at the pinnacle of success, and you have all these great material things. You're doing all these great things, but that's why, again, what I loved about your first book is you can tell you're real. And there's a lot of guys out there that just want to, proclaim their success, but they don't want to talk about their past, or they don't want to talk about the challenges. And I think that's what's important that people need to learn, that it's not easy. There's a lot of adversity. There's a lot of difficult things you need to go through in order to get to where you're at today, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you're going to go through rock bottom moments. In fact, the title of Rock Bottom was inspired by J.K. Rowling. She had a quote that said, "Rock bottom became the foundation for which I built my empire." And when I saw that, I was like, hey, that's a me too right there. And so every one of us has gone through these tough times, whether it be losing a loved one, losing your job, making bad decisions, having the economy affect you, going through turmoil as a result of your environment. All that stuff happens, and it happens nearly every day to someone either in your family or closely connected to you. The key is for us to get through those times, make the best of them, and then add value as a result.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, Ryan, in your when I say in your business, I'm just going to use it in the general sense. I know that you're involved in more than one business, but I guess maybe let's just kind of use ViSalus for an example.
Okay.
In your business, what is the most effective form of marketing in this day and age? And I ask that question because every second the way we market and the way we consume media and things like that is changing. What's your most effective form?
Yeah, I guess number one is you got to learn how to tell stories, because people memorize stories.
Sure.
And so, everything that you do should somehow have, and don't be verbose. Sometimes people will sit down with me and I'll have to listen for 25 minutes about the story of how they got into the room that day. That is not what I want to hear. I want to hear about the story of the creation of your product, right? And if there's something there that, that really anchors deeply in perhaps, I was right there with you, or I remember the time, or I understand the dilemma that you've been through in the creating of that product or service, or the solution that you're giving, or the problem that you're solving for humanity or for business or for your specific clients. Learn how to tell a story, and tell the story around the founding of the company, about your passion for the company, and then write that story, and then market that story by making sure that you put it out there everywhere. Shareables, Instagram, Periscope, as we're on here today, anywhere and everywhere you possibly can, so that way people learn your story. Because people don't want to buy a brand or a slick marketing campaign. We just basically delete that and we tune that stuff out, because every day we see these things, right? You see like 3,000 different advertisements a day, I read somewhere recently. As a result of that, you can only choose a few that you're going to remember, if any. And so you got to make sure that you're really out there deeply connecting to your target audience with the story of your creation, or the problem that you solved, or the stories of your customers, or the testimonies of your customers. But I would just become a professional storyteller.
Yeah, no, that makes a great point. What do they say? Stories sell, right?
Yeah. Facts. It's something like facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah. Every time I try and quote one of those things, I always screw it up. I was on
the same way.
I was on a podcast with Grant Cardone, and I tried to quote Earl Nightingale, about success. I screwed the whole thing up, and it was embarrassing. But
I'm sure Grant corrected you immediately.
He did. He actually, his cameraman corrected me, which was even better. It was success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. That's what I was trying to say. So people got it. But as we talk about entrepreneurship, as we talk about business, as we talk about people that are even in just the workforce, how do you handle stress outside of working? What do you do to de-stress?
Yeah, I guess I got to say I'm not good at that. Like, that's not my number one strength. But what I do that works is I go on hikes. I get, in fact, I've met a lot of great people, and a lot of times when an entrepreneur wants my advice, the deal that I make with them is bring your hiking shoes, and we'll go on a hike, and, we'll see what we can do, if we can do anything. So I like to kind of work while I work out, which is one of my, one of the things that I talk about in terms of a life hack, optimizing yourself. I'll basically get out there, go for a swim, go for a hike, do whatever I can to try to get that physical energy out of me. Sure. And then secondarily, I do attempt to meditate from time to time. I'm a novice at this subject, but I'm learning it to, kind of calm down the mind and start thinking. And then I try to get off the grid as much as I can, or I shut off my phone, for 24 hours or 48 hours. It drives my partners crazy, but like, my phone is off and there's no way you're getting a hold of me. You know how to get in touch with me if there's an emergency, but I don't want to be I don't want to receive certain messaging right now. I want to basically get through perhaps something I need to get through. A decision, it might be around work, or it might be around life, or whatever it is. But you need to take that time and get away from the noise of society. And then, just recently I bought a place in northern Arizona, 40 acres of land. And, in essence, the reason why I bought that, has a writing cabin on it, is to get out there and go write and get away for a week at a time, off the grid, live off the land kind of thing. And de-stress.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You should definitely keep up with the meditation. I learned Transcendental Meditation about 3 years ago and again, it's one of these things that people don't want to talk about, but I had a panic attack. It just totally crippled me and to the point where I thought I needed to go to the hospital. Literally, it was a Friday. That Monday, I learned TM, and I heard about TM from Howard Stern of all people. But then I researched it, and I saw Howard Stern, Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah.
I'll check it out. That sounds great.
Seinfeld, and it's something. You'd really like it. I think it's different than a lot of different meditation. Also, Dan Harris in his book 10% Happier talks about meditation, not necessarily transcendental, but I think you'd like it. 20 minutes twice a day, and again, if Howard Stern, if Oprah, and Jerry Seinfeld are doing it,
I'll take Jerry. So I'm normally not I do study spirituality a lot, but right. I try to. I'm not into that hairy-fairy stuff in general, right? Because right. I came from the streets, right? Everything about me is about doing it the hard way.
Right.
So I started down that path. I will check out that meditation because I got to tell you, it is so important just to clear your thoughts, and a lot of people just don't take the time to do that. One of the other things that I highly recommend people do is take the various tests that are online to try to figure out who you are intellectually. Leadership-wise, strengths-wise, weakness-wise, and there's a lot of them out there. Just so that way you could assess yourself constantly. And then, if stress is an issue, it's probably because you're not growing as an individual.
Sure.
Right? And so get yourself growing again.
Absolutely. Folks, we are on with Ryan Blair. He is the author of the #1 New York Times best-selling book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. He's also the author of his latest book. I love the title, Rock Bottom to Rockstar. I believe it's due out in October. If you want some more information about Ryan Blair, you can just go to ryanblair.com. I believe his book is also available for pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. This guy is a classic entrepreneur. He started with nothing. He grew up on the streets. He was in jail. He's turned his life around. He's made literally hundreds of millions of dollars. He's the CEO of a company that generates billions of dollars. He's giving back. He's a father. He's an author. He's a lecturer. He's really doing it all. But what I love about this guy is he's real. He's a real, and even to this day, and we talked about earlier, if you're just tuning in now, he's a real guy, and that's what I think is really amazing about you, Ryan. Is you talked about your ego and keeping in check, but you're a real guy, which is pretty awesome. So
Thank you.
That.
Thank you.
Next question I like to ask this is kind of a fill in the blank, and here we go. So if my company lacks blank, then we will not succeed.
If my company lacks capital. So I always tell people, your first job as CEO is to make sure you got enough money in the bank. That is it, right? And if you don't have that now, that could be $1,000. That could be $100 that you need in the bank. So, it's not necessarily how much capital. It's that you need to have whatever your company needs to have in the bank to pay its bills. So that way you could build your company.
Sure.
That's the first job. And so I always focus on that first.
All right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm still working on that whole capital thing. I was joking
around.
Yeah,
well, is it really easy for people to go, oh, well, it takes money to make money. And in my book, I refute that 100%.
Right.
That's bullshit. It doesn't take money to make money. It takes, your brain, your time, and so forth. But I've sat there, I've seen a lot of CEOs fail or lose a big chunk of their company. I run a VC fund called #1,
right,
which I took $20 million of my own personal capital along with some of my partners, and we invest in businesses. And all the time, we just invested in one company, for example, that Series A term sheet was $40 million at $135 million valuation. $40 million bucks. A guy's going to invest in this company to start it, basically, at $135 million valuation. That company doesn't need capital. They need to make sure they allocate it correctly. On the inverse side of it, I'm dealing with a company right now where they ran out of cash, and I loaned them a nominal amount of money, like $100,000, and my effective return on that $100,000 could be potentially $10 million.
Right.
It's just because he didn't have the capital in the bank and he needed it, and I'm not a bank. I don't loan money out for free, so as a result, I negotiated my terms. So focus on capital.
Sure. Yeah. You're right. I think it's definitely important. And when I started my company, kind of like you did, started with nothing, credit cards, and a little bit of cash out the 401k, and then kind of grew it over time. But yeah, you're right. I think so many people, they have an idea, they're excited about it. You know what I learned recently, Ryan, for me is that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not an investor. I realized that I invested in some businesses that didn't work, and because I fall in love with the idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I fall in love with the business model, and I think you even kind of talked about that a little bit as well. And I don't really necessarily get excited about the numbers. I get excited about the business, and sometimes they can bite you in the ass.
Yeah. I the reason why I went bankrupt, and I share the same experience that you do, was I invested all my, I sold Sky Pipeline, like I told everybody, the audience here, $25 million bucks. I made about $1 million. I spent that frivolously, and then I took my last dollars, invested in a company that didn't work.
Right.
So I made that mistake. I guess for me, I'm an investor only because I'm a talent scout. Either way. So whether it be in my company when I'm interviewing people, I'm looking for entrepreneurial talent to come join my company in order to, to build it together. And so I see it as all one and the same. But believe me, I have a few investments that I kick myself for making. Like, I fell in love with the entrepreneurs and they just didn't perform, and now I got to clean up the mess.
Yeah, no, it happens, man. But you know what? As long as you talk about risk in your first book, and I think you talk about it a little bit in your other one. Is evaluate the risk if you're able to withstand the risk. And also, I tell people that who do invest in certain things, if you can't afford to lose the money, then don't do it.
Don't invest. Every check I write, I know that one, I might have to write 5 more.
Right.
And then 2, if I lose, it's not going to kill me.
Sure, absolutely. Ryan, a lot of people that listen and watch, they're new in the workforce. They're growing. They're trying to grow. They're trying to climb the corporate ladder. They want the material things, and they don't know what to do. What would you give young people in the workforce? What sort of advice would you give them on how to grow?
One is try to find a job. So if you want to become an entrepreneur, find a job at a company that is filled with entrepreneurs or led by a great entrepreneur.
Sure.
So that way, it rubs off on you. A lot of times people take the job of, perhaps, the highest paying job. And I always say, don't do that. If you can live right now on less, live on less and take the job that's going to teach you the most toward wherever you want to go. So, if you want to be in real estate, take a job as an intern in real estate if you can, and learn everything you can about real estate. So try to find a job that matches up with your future, purpose or vision for yourself. That's number one. And if you don't have that, then go find another job. And 2, fill your mind with books and subject matter that is gonna take you to where you need to go. So, for example, when I worked at a software firm, and I was writing trading software to trade the commodities industry. So basically writing code that would, try to bet on the market,
right,
computer-wise. And, and I would get in the office at 5 a.m. every single day because the markets opened up at like 6 West Coast time. And I would get in at 5 every day, do my trades, be out by 4. And from 4 to 10, I'd be reading and working on my side business until I had 6 months to live, meaning I'd saved up enough money to have 6 months in the bank to start my side business. And that business became, a full-time business.
Yeah, I like that advice too as it relates to business, because a lot of people, again, back to the whole dream part, I tell people not to dream, but they want the entrepreneurial lifestyle, and they make the mistake of going all in too soon. And I tell people, look, if you have a vision of another business or a side business, keep your day job, so to speak, and work towards it, like you said, so where you can actually leave the other job, where where you can support yourself for at least that 6-month period, so that you're going to be able to live and eat. Because too many people. I hear it all the time. I'm sure you do all the time. Oh, I want to run this business, that business. They leave their existing real job, and they have no idea what they're really in for.
A lot of times people don't understand the structure of employment and then how that plays with you when you're unemployed. I write a lot about how I view time now in my book, because I used to just be, when I first started my company, I used to just dread coming in on Mondays because I like to work late at night. I like to play cards with my friends. I like to do whatever the hell I want to do, and if I want to stay up till 4 a.m., I'll stay up till 4 a.m.
Right.
And then get a few hours sleep, and then work from home all day long. But I used to have all kinds of issues in and around the structure of employment, and then how I could operate for my maximum efficiency. And I've come to some terms on how to do that, and that's a lot of what I talk about. Like right now as we speak, I'm in my house, and I have 6 members in my office coming up from my LA office to meet me at my house. So that way I highly optimize my life, my time with my son, and my effectiveness, right? So,
sure.
You just got to figure out a way to optimize yourself. And that's hard for people to do. Most important, though, if you start your company, the number one thing that you need to do is focus on your calendar. So if you leave your job, your calendar should be filled every single day in, no more than 1 hour time slots, and seeing as many possible people as you can to either raise money, get customers, or, get allegiances, partnerships, and so forth necessary for you to build your business. And that calendar should be filled 31 days a month, if there is 31, until you have enough money coming in that you could take a couple days off. Bill Gates said it perfectly when he said he didn't take a single day off in his 20s. And I got to tell you, I didn't take very many days off in my 20s either.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, earlier, for those of you that are just joining us, I give everyone the same questions, so it gives me kind of a structure and gives my guests a structure. And I had asked Ryan if I had given him, if he had received the questions, and he said he hadn't. Now, Ryan, my next question, it's crazy that I'm not even gonna ask it because you already answered it, which was, how do you become more efficient? And you just told everybody, kind of what you do as far as the calendar and figuring out how to become more efficient. I mean, is there anything else? Is there anything else to it other than what you just said?
Surround yourself with great people.
Yeah.
If you have great people around you, you become more efficient.
Sure.
I use a basketball court analogy. If you put me on a court with a bunch of, terrible players, I'm going to lower my game. You put me on a court with a bunch of great players, I'm going to raise my game. Your life is like a basketball court. You got to have great players a part of your life, whether they be friends, whether they be business associates, colleagues, whatever it is. Just be around great people and you'll become greater.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of times I skip this question, but I'm going to ask you this question because of your current business, ViSalus, and how it's run. In this day and age, what do you think is the best form of communication with your customers?
Best form of communication with your customers is you got to communicate your values. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about like the specific vehicle of communication,
the vehicle.
The vehicle. That's a tough one. We're studying a lot of different things. I mean, I would say I lean heavily on communicating via anything that Facebook owns.
Sure.
Those guys are obviously figuring out how to grab consumers' time and attention. They're rocket scientists on the subject. So as a platform, Instagram, Facebook, obviously Twitter, Periscope. And I'd say social media would be the best form of communication right now.
Sure.
That I can see. But you are dealing with a million other pieces of communication instantaneously. Second to that is, you communicate to people through your brand. So when a customer opens up your box, you're communicating something. When a customer goes on your website, you're communicating something. So try to communicate your values, because that's the only thing that's going to stand out right now, are values, because everybody else has the same features or the same idea. I mean, it's rare that you have a unique idea on this planet because you have so many people innovating. You might have a unique way to attack an idea, but it's rare that there's one that's unique. So you got to communicate your values.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad I asked that question. So Ryan, we're down to question 10. I want to thank you, for spending the time again. We've been on with Ryan Blair. He's got his latest book out. It's titled Rock Bottom to Rockstar. I read his first book. I've heard of Ryan when I bought his first book called Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. You can learn more about Ryan Blair by going to ryanblair.com. He's also the CEO of a company called ViSalus, a company. It's a lifestyle company that helps people maintain their weight, maintain a healthier lifestyle. It's amazing what he's done with that company, from $9 million to over $2 billion in sales. It's probably even more than that.
Close. We're about 1.8.5 billion right now.
Well,
we're close to 2.
We'll round up. We'll round up to 2.
I appreciate you rounding up, but I still got a lot of work to do to get it to 2.
All right. Well, I'm sure you'll be there shortly. So the last question I have, Ryan, and again, it's really been amazing for you to spend the time and give the information and the little tidbits of a true entrepreneur that is risen from the ashes, fallen, risen again, and where you're sitting today. If you could leave our viewers and listeners with one piece of advice in business other than what you've already given us, what would that be?
I guess the number one piece of advice in business to leave the listeners with that I can think of right now would be start today. Just if you're listening to this podcast, take action. And then add to that action every single day, and eventually you'll get momentum. And Rock Bottom to Rockstar, I talk about I'm making money today for things that I did 10 years ago.
Sure.
Right? So you got to start today. Don't start tomorrow. And it'll be the tiny little things that you do today that will add up to eventually you having, the life of your dreams, whatever that is.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that is such sound, simple advice. Take action. And just to kind of recap on what you said, which is, I don't know if anyone caught that, is you said you're making money on things that you did 10 years ago.
If not more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, there's things that I learned 10 years ago that today I'm making decisions on that are yielding me, success in many different forms. There are investments that I made 10 years ago that I'm starting to see returns on now, whether it be like, for example, real estate and some others. So, and I've owned ViSalus for 12 years.
Sure.
So it was the work that we did 12 years ago to buy the company that now has the results that we have today.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. Again, folks, we've been on with Ryan Blair. If you want more information about Ryan Blair, you go to ryanblair.com. You can check out his latest book, Rock Bottom to Rockstar. It's due out in October. I believe you can pre-order it now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and pretty much everywhere books are sold. I read his first book. It's amazing. And I love the way he writes, because he writes almost like he speaks, kind of almost the way I write as well. And he tells you like it is. He tells you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And he shows you how, he overcame adversity. And he also tries to show you how not to make mistakes. And that's what I also love about it as well. Sometimes people say the best experience is other people's experiences. So it's been an amazing show. My name is Michael Alden. This has been the Alden Report, and I hope you got some value out of this, and we'll see you soon. Today's episode is brought to you by Tommy John and Tommy John's Cool Cotton Collection. Before I tell you a little bit more about Tommy John, I want you to know that I own their underwear, I own their socks, and I own their undershirts. And guys, it is truly amazing. When you try their underwear, their socks, or their undershirt, you will never buy another pair of underwear or another undershirt from anyone else other than Tommy John. Tommy John's Cool Cotton Collection is made from a patented blend of super light, breathable Pima cotton fabrics that keep you 2 to 3 times cooler and dry 4 to 5 times faster than traditional underwear, and it's impossible to get a wedgie. Plus, Cool Cotton features the one-of-a-kind horizontal quick-draw fly, saving you an average of 217 minutes a year in bathroom time. No idea how they came up with that, but they obviously figured it out. Their undershirts, again, which I own several of, are made with a patented Stay Tucked guarantee, and their socks have a stay-up technology to keep them in place. And of course, their underwear is backed by the best pair you'll ever wear, or its free guarantee. Look and feel amazing all year long with Cool Cotton from Tommy John. Please visit TommyJohn.com. That's TommyJohn.com.